did a crap load of glacial tar mutations last week whenever it was up. Uh, I mean, my primary content is wars, but I definitely do other stuff. I did a lot of chest runs whenever the expansion was fresh, and I was like gearing up and stuff. I'm trying to get a little bit more active, a little more involved. A lot of ERP content too. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I mean, yeah, there are definitely people doing that. Maybe not me, but alrighty. So while I'm waiting for these pulls and stuff on my other server, I'm gonna. Can everybody in Discord still see the? Yeah, they can. Okay, dope. So if you have anybody has any questions, that goes for people in Discord and my stream. Like, feel free, ask questions, whatever. Like I said, I don't intend on this being like super crazy in depth, and we I'll try and go over some fort stuff in a bit. Either whenever I get pulled, and I can just talk about some fort stuff while I'm waiting for this war to start that I'm about to be in, because we're on defense. Um, but I'll just start with this, and we'll see how it goes. So for those who aren't familiar, this is a very basic setup for a war. B point, C point, whatever the final point ends up being, even inside fort, uh, it can be somewhat similar, but outside of fort, this is your general setup. You're gonna see these are a lot of the general like names of things you're gonna see. And this specifically is from an attacker's perspective. Um, the nomenclature, everything like the names of everything is the same, attack or defense. The only difference you're gonna see is which side the bonfire is on. So if you're attacking on B point, bonfire will be to your left, and then on last point, it'll be to your right. Just that'll be the only thing that changes for the most part. Everything else, your people are still going to go to the same place. So Opobon, opposite of the bonfire. So everybody just calls that Opobon. We have bonfire. We have the left and right ramparts if you're on attack. If you're on defense, which means you are coming from. Oh, let me turn this around. If you're on defense, then you're coming from this direction towards the point, right? Then this would be your right ramparts and left ramparts. The ramparts are those sandbag things in front of the fort, if you're not aware. Um, let's see, we got our quad groups. So you have your 10 groups. So you see we have group 1 and 2 are typically your point team players. They're a bunch of heavy, beefy players that just sit on point the entire time. They don't do anything else. They don't wander off. They don't go run around anywhere. They just sit on point. And then you have your quads. Now your quads typically these days have 3 people who are playing on the point. You have a healer, and then you have a DPS who's kind of roaming around doing other things. And these players are designed to also play on the point, but they can also wander off the point a little bit. And I don't mean like way off somewhere else. I mean like a little bit off the point, playing on the point, because the whole object is to have more people on the point than the enemy player team does, so that you can capture the point. So if you hear bot left quad, bot right quad, top right quad, or top left quad, the point is broken up into quadrants. This is what is being talked about. These groups of players here. That is called your main ball. That is all these people sitting here around the point. You see I have some heal icons. This is typically where you're going to find healers on your team, where they will congregate, because there are kill squads also roaming around. And they want to get to those healers and kill them, so that you can win the fight, or so that they can win the fight, right? And yours are trying to do the same. So you have a uh, on attack. This is the strong side, because typically you capture the point that's off to the side over there. So like A point will be over here, and C point will be somewhere over here. Again, from an attacker's perspective, right? So your group 7 will be your strong side. We call this strong side because we have respawns who come in from A, because that point's usually given away for free. So people will go capture A. The shot caller will designate one or multiple people to go do that. They will capture that at the beginning of the war, and then Group 7 will respawn from there, and other players like your quads will respawn there as well. Sorry, 1 second. This Group 7 kill squad, couple heavy disruptors, couple fire staffs typically, or whatever your army likes to, however they like to set it up. They are trying to contest this space in Apoban, and ultimately what they're trying to do is work their way into the enemy road to kill healers. They just sit up here and typically get stuck in a stalemate fighting the other team's Group 7. And they just kind of eternally duel each other. These guys want to hold space. These guys want to take that space. Then we have Group 8 is another kill squad. They're called the Inner Lane. Their job is to fight basically around bonfire area, generally speaking. They assist in all kinds of things. They can help with the quads a little bit. They can help with Group 9 kill squad a little bit. They can clear the ramparts. Their favorite spot to be is in enemy road, killing healers. So that is your Inner Lane kill squad. That is a typical setup in most armies on most servers. Group 9 is your mid lane kill squad. They are also heavy disruptors and fire staffs, maybe a bow, however they like to set it up, and they play in between. And then you have Group 10. I have them way up here in the corner because typically they're somewhere way off the map where you never see them for almost the whole war. That is typically 2 disruptors and 2 bows fighting in a 5v5, eternally locked in the middle of nowhere against the enemy team's wide kill squad, and just doing their own thing until the outside of fort phase is done. So, quick recap of the names of everything. Bonfire, which is literally just a big bonfire next to the point. Should be obvious. Apoban, opposite of bonfire. Top of point is the enemy road side of the point. Wherever the enemy players respawn and come in from, that is where top of point is. And then bottom of point is where we come in from the point, right? Think of the point from this point of view, from an above down, right? So bottom of point is your side of the point, where your main respawn, the war camp if you're attack, or the fort if you're defense. Top of point is their side. Then you have top left, top right, bot left, bot right. So Stay at Home Chad asked if Group 1 and 2 are typically all heavy builds, specifically bruisers, or is it much like quad bruiser builds? So I'm not going to get too into specifics about how all the builds, because every army is a little bit different, but yes, it is normally several heavy players. You got some tank, like an SNS tank, a flail, some heavy VGIGs, an AoE healer is usually in one of those, because that's where they're focusing all their heals, and then some bruisers as well. And those bruisers can either be heavy or medium. Everybody does it a little bit differently, but that's generally how it's done. Yeah, no problem. Consumes. Another super basic thing that everybody should have set up as muscle memory. Cleanse pots. Everybody should have cleanse pots. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. There's no question about it. Cleanse pots are the most broken consumable in the game, and unfortunately they only exist in war settings. So cleanse pots are very, very useful. And a very common mistake in war is people don't use them. Find some other consumable to bring in OPRs and practice with that. Pretend it's a cleanse pot, and every time you would use a cleanse pot, pop it instead, whether that's a hearty meal or a focus pot or whatever. It doesn't matter. Get used to using those cleanse pots. And it's very important that they're used before you use things like health pots, because typically you're using them when you have a disease status effect on you. If you don't know, disease status effects reduce the amount of healing you receive from your healers. Very important that you use that. It also reduces the amount of healing you receive from health pots. So, use your cleanse pots, then use your health pots. Let your healers know that you're cleansed. So if you're taking a bunch of damage and you pop a cleanse, they know that you're gonna be a good target for heals. Really good basic stuff there. Health pots, everybody. Thanks Azazel. I appreciate you. Health pots, very, very important. Make sure you're using those. Keep yourself nice and healthy. The way I view it is every time you use a health pot, that's one less heal your healers have to use on you. That is a good thing, because then your healers are free to heal other people or heal themselves if they need it, which is very likely. Regen serums or regen pots. So they have the serums that they added into the game. Make sure I'm not getting AFK kicked. So for anybody on my stream, you can see regeneration serums. They are really, really strong. I don't personally recommend using them unless you're really, really comfortable with your consume usage. Regen pots are also strong. Make sure you're using them. In wars, it is expected that you use a minimum of 40, that is 40 regen pots. And 60 regen pots is a really good goal to go for. If you can hit 50, awesome. Anytime I'm in a war, I use at least 50 regen pots in one war. That is making sure that your health is nice and topped off, that if you're a healer, your mana is nice and healthy. It is just a really good habit to have those going as often as you possibly can. Regen serums are a little different. You're going to use those whenever you go to like engage or something like that. And then absorption potions. So healers might use mana pots instead because they like healthy toast or they need mana. That's fine. If you're not using mana pots, then you should be using absorption potions, and that's going to vary based on your role. But all you're typically going to see are fire absorption potions, oak flesh, gemstone, arcane absorb pots, maybe void absorb pots. Some people like that, but pretty common to see fire absorb for a lot of players. Arcane is really nice for the point team. Oak flesh and gemstone, they're decent choices. Not as good as fire absorb pots if you're getting hit by fire, but good stuff. Yo, what's up? Thanks, Frankenstein and Kazanar subbing. I've never had a hype train before, so that's pretty dope. Alright, so basic terminology for war. So we already talked about Apoban, that's opposite of bonfire. We talked about Bon. You'll sometimes hear that instead of bonfire. So Bon is literally that big bonfire. Top of point, always the side of point the enemy players attack from, like I said. Bottom of point, always the side of point that our army attacks from. Bot left, bot right, top left, top right applies to the quadrant of the point based on our army's spawn perspective, attack or defense. And then something else that you're going to hear is crash X location. So we're going to get into a little bit of like shot calling territory and some calls you could hear. So every caller is a little bit different. But crash X location is something that you'll hear. And so what that's referring to is if the shot caller is saying like crash top left the point, they're talking about people in the quads focusing their damage and their abilities on that top left quadrant of point so that you can try and kill the clump, which is a grouping or a cluster of enemy players that are in that space. So if you hear something like crash X location, crash top left, all abilities on top left, that's what they're talking about. Yo, thanks, Salty. What's up, guys? This is awesome. Spread or declump. Spread out from the crash location called does not mean leave the point. So something that you're going to hear shortly after everybody crashes on a point is spread, play life, declump, something like that. They're not talking about getting way off the point out in the middle of nowhere and abandoning it because you still want to maintain the tick. What they're expecting is that the enemy team is going to see that all your people just clustered up in one spot and be like, all right, everybody crash those guys. And it's called a counter crash. And their team is going to then come in and attack that. So you have to be wary of that if you're playing on the point that if your army, I don't know why this is working, just crashed, that they're going to be like, holy crap, look at all these people, jump on them and kill them. So you go in, you dump abilities, then you spread out. I put that person in the wrong spot. Helps you stay alive. D-tick point. So this only applies to defense, but D-tick point means put enough bodies on the point to cause the enemy tick or spin their control of the point. Yeah, I'll be posting it, Majudi. I'll give people access to this raid plan so they can reference it. I have no problem. I'll also be posting this stream so people can watch it whenever they want. So D-ticking point for defense. That just means having more people on the point. I missed pulls for my war. Almost. So that the spin goes down. So if you've done OPR and you're not like familiar with that, in OPR, whenever you're standing in the fort and you're gaining control of the little forts inside, same exact concept applies to wars. So let's say there's you want to have more bodies in that circle than the other team does. So when you're on defense, taking the point is putting people on the point so that that control, that influence that the attackers have gained goes down because you don't want it to stay high. You don't want to stay up at all. Playing life, kind of talked out a bit, just doing literally everything you can to stay alive. That means getting out of fights, popping all your consumables, using your defensive cooldowns, not stamming yourself out, doing whatever you can to survive as long as you can. Sometimes shot callers are going to call you to do that to basically hold off the enemy team and burn time so that you can achieve another objective in the war, like on another point. And then all in. All in call, something else you're going to hear. It's another term that's used a lot. All players get on the point, period. Doesn't matter if you're a healer, you're a dex, not anything. Doesn't matter. You get on the point. This is usually done, not don't, at 90 to 95% point tick, maybe like even a little bit higher than that. It's just going to vary on the shot caller and enemy respawn timers and all that stuff. So you are sorry, 1 second. I am technically going to be in a war in a couple minutes, so and if you want to hang out and watch the war, feel free. But trying to make sure I don't like get AFK kicked and troll my group. It's on Octans. Defending Brimstone against some people. So this is when everybody gets to get on point. It's really common for healers to not want to get on the point, and for dex players not going to want to get on the point because it's really scary for somebody in light armor, which is what they're wearing, to get in a clump of players. Don't be afraid to do it. If they're calling it all in, they mean it. Get all in. You're trying to do what's called a coin flip, which I forgot to include on this. Coin flip is when points so high, everybody's just going in, and you're just hoping you win the coin flip. Maybe you'll like kill just enough people whenever everybody crashes in to have just enough bodies to capture the point. Maybe not. This is super important and super hype. It's a very important part of a war. Some general tips. I already covered some of these. Using and popping your regen potions frequently. Aim to use 40 to 60 like I talked about. If you're using serums, only use them whenever like you're about to enter into a big fight, like a big clump of players. Using cleanse potions. Always buy 2 stacks of these at the beginning of war. They're super important. They remove all debuffs, rends, slows, disease, whatever, roots. They're fantastic. They're very, very busted. You should always have a good, healthy stack of those and be using them frequently. Communicating with your group. Very, very important. Openly communicate with your group. Oh, yeah, good call. I will turn my webcam off for a minute. Thank you for that. Communicating with your group, super important. Calling major cooldowns, shockwave, grav, deado, vines, heals, playing life, anything. Don't just be a mute. Yeah, because that is, so for those wondering, that's a good question. So Kazanar asked if why we only use regen serums like before entering a big fight. They have a massive cooldown. You can't just spam them off cooldown. You need to make sure you're using them at the right time. Because they are so strong. So you can't afford to just use them when you're just running around like you would at a regen pot, because you can't afford to keep those rolling pretty much non-stop. So communicating with your group, very, very important. Get VOD reviews. If you have somebody who can VOD review you, record your footage of you playing war and ask somebody who's experienced in it what they're talking about to review your VODs. And then most importantly, have fun. It's a video game. Enjoy yourself. It's not a job. Like, you don't have to treat it like one. You know, don't be afraid to ask questions. Despite what some people in the non-war community might think, the war community is full of a bunch of super chill people who just enjoy the game, and the better we can grow the war community, the more content there is for everybody. Players like myself, I know lots of other people who really just enjoy helping people out. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. See if anybody can give you tips and tricks and stuff. So, like, it's pretty fun. I was going to go into some other stuff about some kill squad things, but I might have to save that for another night. I have a few minutes before this starts, so I'll talk about Fort really, really briefly, and then I got to hop in another VC for this war and make sure I know what the crap is going on. So this is the fort, obviously. Pretty much everybody in the game has seen one. If you haven't, then, you know, this is it. It's pretty standard. Every single fort looks exactly the same. There's shops. So, like, we have front shop here, back shops there. There's a pair on each side. Back shop over there, and another front shop over there. We have the point, the ultimate goal for attackers to take this point. When you're defending, top of point is down here by the choke. I don't care what anybody says, this is the top of the point because you are on defense. It is the side of the point that is down here by the B gate choke. Bottom of point is up here. And this is called hell because it's a miserable place to be. Nobody wants to be here. It's very easy to die there. We've got the backstage back here. We got front walls. Some people call them ramparts. So those are the front walls up there. Lots of decks and healers like to sit up there. And we got the back gates. We got dummies in here. These are the, let's see, I'm on C side. These are the C side dummies because this gate is labeled as C. Which, yes, is different than the name of the point that's outside of it, which is A point. This is C dirt, is what this is called. Over here on the other side is the same thing, except for A gate, A dirt, and A dummies. Very important. Makes playing Fort really, really less stressful whenever you know the names of all the locations and everybody's on the same page as what they are. How to play it. You know, this is a great place for healers and decks to be, even on attack, like coming into the fort. You know, I'm not going to go that in depth on like fort breaching and things like that because there's a lot to that. But anyways, that's all I got time for right now. I got to jump into comms. If you're watching my stream, feel free to hang out. Thanks for subbing and coming in. I have some time after this war, so maybe I'll go into some more stuff after around 9:30. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and hop over. So all my Ordo peeps, you know, hit me up. Yeah, there we go. All right, I'll be back. Yep, yep.